Welcome everybody. In today's video we're going to be looking at how to determine what a scale is. Now we did look at another previous example or a couple of examples where we understood that there's a specific order to how we build our major scales, and that would be exactly what I just wrote out there, and that's whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Now, if we come down here, we'll start to recognize that this is a disaster. This is completely out of order. So what I want to do is I want to put it in order. And so you might be thinking, but what do I start with? And the answer is it doesn't matter. Just to show you that it doesn't matter, let me go ahead and start with, I'll go ahead and do two different starting points. And we'll start with C sharp at first. So I'm going to write this out. And let's see, we've got C sharp. And I can see that, well, let's see, C sharp and E are certainly not linear, and so I want to jump over here to D. After D would be an E, so I'm just simply putting this in some sort of a logical order. After E would be F sharp. After F sharp would be G sharp. After G sharp is A, and then after A is B. Okay, and now I have some kind of a logical order. Now the last thing I want to remember, and this is very important, is that my starting value needs to match my ending value. It does not, and so it's a very simple fix. We just need to drop a C sharp in and we are good to go. All right, now this does not mean it is the C sharp major scale. So if you made that assumption, you are also completely wrong. All right, so we're just trying to determine what major scale this is. Let's go ahead and get started. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go, well, what's the intervallic distance from here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here, from G sharp to A, from A to B, from B to C sharp, and figure those out. So let's see, the distance from C sharp to D is a half step. The distance from D to E is a whole step. From E to F sharp is a whole step. From F sharp to G sharp is a whole step. From G sharp to A is a half step. From A to B is a whole step. And finally, from B to C sharp, we have a whole step. And now we should be able to see a pattern. We're always just looking for patterns. And so I can see this pattern here. I can see that I have whole, whole, half. I'm sorry, whole, 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 half right there. And that corresponds to this portion of the scale. And I can see that I have whole, whole, and I'm going to sort of kind of wrap this around here. Imagine that it wraps around whole, whole, half, and that actually corresponds to this portion of the scale. So now you can see things a little bit clearer. What I want to understand is that this particular whole step, this whole step right here, is coming from somewhere. So whole steps, you have to understand that whole steps are intervals. They're distances between two notes. And so we don't start this whole step right here at B because this is the distance between A and B. So it actually is starting, this is starting on A. So this is really what we start from A. So let's rewrite this out a little cleaner. We have A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and back to A. Once again, the trick to this particular method was we needed to understand that these notes were completely out of order. We need to first put them in any kind of an order, and then we're able to figure out our scale. Just to prove to you that we can, doesn't matter, the order is completely arbitrary in terms of what we start with, let's go ahead and start with, oh, I don't know, F sharp, and let's see if we can do it that way as well. So if I start with F sharp, so I'm looking over here is my mess of a scale, and I'm just going to simply take these notes, and I'm going to rewrite them down here. And so let's see, starting with F sharp, and then I recognize, well, let's see, now G sharp would be the next one. And after G sharp could be an A, and after A could be B, and then after B would be C sharp, then after C sharp would be D, after D would be an E, and once again I want to recognize that my starting value does not match my ending value, so I want to make those match, and so we're just going to draw another F sharp in here. Okay, so now very simple to analyze at this point. We're going to just simply look for relationships. We're going to look for relationships, and the relationship here from 1 to 2, the relationship from scale degrees 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and 7 to 1. Assuming, right? Our assumed 7 to 1. We really don't, well, we do know what 1 is. We know that it's an A, but assuming that we didn't know. So now we look for our relationships, and I can see that from 1 to 2 is a whole step. From 2 to 3, oh, that's a half step. Hey, we're getting lucky already. A to B is a whole step. B to C sharp is a whole step. C sharp to D is a half step. D to E is a whole step. E to F sharp is a whole step. And so once again, we start looking for our patterns. We can correspond that I've got whole, whole, half right here, and I've got whole, whole, again, wrapping this around, whole, 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 half. So here I've got whole, 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 half, and whole, whole, half, and that would correspond directly to our scale. Let's write it out over here. This whole, whole, half that I wrote right here corresponds to this portion of the scale, and the double pink whole, 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 half corresponds to right here, whole, 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 half. And once again, we have to recognize that when we say whole step right here, that this particular whole step, that this is coming from somewhere. So it's not just a magical whole step. Remember, whole steps are intervals, they're distances. And so it's coming from this A. And so that is where we start our scale from. And so you could see that it didn't matter whether we started from a C sharp or an F sharp or anything in between. We could start with any note, and this scale will always build properly as long as you follow these very basic tenements. In future videos, we're going to continue to look at this idea about how to determine what scale it is that you're looking at.